about hearing from you about time crystals. What exactly is a time crystal?
Time crystals are frozen moments in time. Now, the interesting part about them is uh, what we found out while working in the healing presence. It's like when we create this presence, a frozen moment in time dissolves and comes into present awareness and is healed. Now, the interesting part is when we started working with this, science came out and now says there's a thing called time crystal, and they can't figure it out because it's this crystallized inert thing floating in energy. It doesn't attach to anything. It doesn't generate energy. It just sits there like a frozen moment. They don't even have an explanation for it, or frozen energy is a better way to describe it. And so what we began to realize is that when we work in these energies, if you assume the body is an energetic field, we create a safe space for the field, and we create a safe space for a moment in time that's in the past, that's been frozen, for it to move back into the present, a healing occurs. So some of the examples that I talked about were moving something from the past, like my own example around a resentment was a frozen moment in time of something that happened to me that I have carried my whole life, and suddenly I have crystal clarity, not big emotion, just crystal clarity of what happened, when it happened, how it's transitioned through my life, and released so I don't have to do it anymore. And it's a phenomenal aspect, and people want to say, well, that's woo-woo, or that's not possible, but I have enough anecdotal stories from people's own experience without me even telling them what they should be experiencing to verify something of this magnitude happens. Now, whether you want to call it literal or metaphorical, I don't really care. I'm only interested in one thing. Are they more centered in themselves and who they are? And if they are, it doesn't matter what the explanation is. That's the same thing around, we talked about crystals earlier. Some people say, well, that's superstitious or that's your imagination. My response to that is, I don't really care about that either. If it works, if it supports a person to be more present, to release and heal something, I don't care whether you want to say it's superstition and eliminated it, or it's placebo because I planted a seed and they used it to heal themselves. I don't really care. I'm just creating the space and environment, a container for them to heal themselves. However they make meaning of it, it's up to them.
And what is that space? Is that liminal space?
Yeah, Victor Turner came up with a thing called, he's an anthropologist, he called it liminal space, and what he was studying was indigenous cultures doing ceremony and rituals. And he noticed we often call it trance, and we have a negative connotation around trance in our society. It's not, it's just an alternative way of perceiving reality and being present. But oftentimes in liminal space, what happens is we go to, I often call it piercing moments. We go into this space in spiritual terms over the years, they also call it the space between. Some would say it's the pause between inhale and exhale. There's a whole lot of varieties that explains the same thing, but liminal space, and when Victor Turner talked about it, and we've integrated it, is when we create a healing presence, it's like creating the potential for a liminal space, which means they can actually come fully into the present moment and heal themselves. Now there's a variation of that which is called a liminoid. Now a liminoid is not a full ceremonial space, and the container may not be big enough for, let's say, a full healing, but it could be, a liminoid could be, I get an insight to what's causing all my issues. And as they build more presence, then their own liminal space or the healing container is able to hold more of them so that they actually can finish the healing themselves. And the question is we're not searching for insights, epiphanies, melting of time crystals. We're just creating the space, because if we stay out of it, it's fascinating to watch how the people heal themselves. It just happens. People will say, I don't have words for what just happened. I just know I'm different. And that's a common explanation of it. And we apply very much to the do not do unto anybody is also don't do any harm. So the idea is we support them to be fully who they are as much as they can in that moment, and to become the healing presence for themselves. We just create the space.